This conference will now be recorded.
So today morning we have learned about divergent squint, right? Diversion means both eyes will be away from each other, means exodeviation. So esodeviation is, or esotropia is, opposite to exodeviation. Here in this picture you can see this eyeball, it is in the center, right? This part of sclera and this part of sclera are same size, but in this eye you can see, you cannot able to see, this is nasal side and this is temporal side, right? So in this nasal side you're not able to see the sclera. Why? Because the eyeball is rotated inside. Inside means esodeviation. So this esodeviation can be either esotropia or esophoria. So what is the difference between phoria and tropia? Phoria means latent squint. Latent means unless you break the binocular single vision or the fusion in the eyeball, this esophoria will not come into existence. The patient will have normal eyeballs. Okay, when we see in the primary gaze or when we see a patient directly like this, both the eyeballs will be in the normal position like this left eyeball. Even the right eyeball will be in the normal position. Okay, when we break the fusion is function of both the eyes simultaneously, right? When we break, both these eyeballs will fuse and will get a single image. Okay, when we break the fusion, that is, if you close this eye with your hand, that is breaking the fusion. If you keep eye in front of this left eye, then there will be break in the fusion. We are removing the fusion in that particular mechanism. When you remove the fusion, this eyeball will move inside. That is called as phoria. The squint which is not seen unless the fusion is removed is called as phoria. What is tropia? Whatever you see now, this is tropia. It is obvious, right? You are saying that the eyeball is moving inside even though fusion is present. So even though if fusion is present, the eyeball is moving inside, then it is called as tropia. Phoria means latent, which is hidden. Once you break the fusion, then only ESO is obvious or EXO is obvious. Then it is phoria. Tropia means you are directly, even the fusion is not removed, you are able to see the deviation of the eyeball. So that is the difference between tropia and phoria. Is that clear, or you have any doubts regarding this? See, at the end of the session, I'll definitely ask you questions. You people know that. If you have any doubts, you can just raise now only. Okay, then I'll continue. So now today's topic is esodeviation. Coming to esotropia. Okay, so it is derived from the Greek word eso, which means inward. Trepo means turn. So eyeball will be turning inside towards the nasal side. That is the reason it is called as esotropia. Now you can see this in this eyeball. The patient eye is moved inside. Okay, see here also. Okay, what is this asymmetrical corneal reflex or Hirschberg's test? There is a particular manual torchlight test to say whether the patient is having primary gaze or the patient is having any type of squint. Okay, now you can see this patient is having nasal deviation of the eyeball. In this picture, you can see this small white dot. Yes, this is the reflection of the torch which you throw on the patient. Usually when the patient eyeball is in center or in the primary gaze, if the eyeball is in the center like this, then it is called as primary gaze. This corneal reflex will be at the center in the pupil. Within the pupil, it will be in the center of the pupil. Here you can see here, it is little bit temporal. Why? Because the eyeball is moving nasally, the reflex will fall temporally. Vice versa, when the eyeball is moved laterally, the reflex will fall medially to the pupil. from the center of the pupil. You can see when the eyeball is moving this side, actually the reflex has to be in the center. Because the eyeball is moved this side, the reflex is falling towards the temporal pupillary margin. It has moved temporally. Okay, so in esotropia, this test is called as Hirschberg's test. In this Hirschberg's test, the pupillary reflex will be deviated or it moves towards the temporal side in esotropia. Okay, so this is how you can see. In the first image, you can see this white reflex is the pupillary reflex or the torchlight reflex which you have thrown on the patient. Okay, see it is in the center. You observe only this left eye. Okay, right eye is normal, or in all the places it is in the center. So here there is mild ESO deviation. You can see mild ESO deviation. So this is the pupil, right? So because there is mild ESO deviation, this pupillary reflex is slightly moved towards the temporal side. Okay, if it is near the pupillary margin, we can say approximately or in a crude method that the ESO deviation is about 15 degrees. If it is near the pupillary margin, this is the pupillary margin, right? So this light reflex, if it is near the pupillary margin, you can say approximately that the ESO deviation is about 15 degrees. You can see here, this is the pupillary margin and this is the limbus, right? This margin or this, sorry. Okay, here you can see this is the limbus. The junction between the cornea and the sclera is the limbus. So if it is between the pupillary margin and the limbus, then the deviation could be about 30 degrees. If it is crossing the limbus and it is mostly near the margin of this limbus, then you can say that it is a crude method. Okay, you can say approximately the deviation is about 45 degrees. So just near the pupillary margin 15 degrees, between the pupillary margin and the limbus it is about 30 degrees, beyond the pupillary margin it is 45 degrees. Okay, this is a crude method called as Hirschberg test. Okay, so there are few stages of, usually this is not followed but it is given. So esophoria, I told you phoria means latent, it is hidden. Initially there will be esophoria, then intermittent esotropia, as the name indicates. Sometimes there will be esotropia, sometimes the patient will have normal primary gaze, followed by esotropia ensues. Okay, so what is esophoria? What is esophoria? You can see here the eyes are in the central position because the patient is having fusion. I told you phoria is a latent squint. You can see here the eyes are in normal primary gaze or in the normal position. Once you break the fusion, okay, once you break this fusion, the patient will have, you can see here, esotropia, sorry, phoria. Okay, there is an inward deviation of the eyeball. Next comes the intermittent esotropia. It is intermittent because this fusion mechanism will control the eyeball. Sometimes the fusion gets vexed and it gets relaxed, then ESO will come into picture. Once again the fusion gets activated, again the ESO will disappear. Okay. Next stage is esotropia. Okay, it is not controlled by any fusion. It is a constant deviation. The patient will have this ESO deviation continuously. Okay, so this ESO deviation, there's a classification for this: concomitant and concomitant. In concomitant, you can see paralytic, restrictive, and spastic. Paralytic, it can be neurogenic and myogenic. Restrictive, it is musculofacial, and spastic, this is all spasms. And concomitant type, it is non-accommodative, first accommodative, partially accommodative, and non-accommodative. So accommodative is mainly because of refraction and AC by A ratio. So, sorry, accommodation can be, it is two types, refractive and non-refractive, right? So it can be because of some refraction, okay? And sometimes even though there is no any refractive error, then also it can be, the anisotropia can be there. So what is this AC by A ratio? Okay, so AC means accommodative convergence. When the patient's eyeball uses accommodation, both the eyeballs comes little bit into ESO position. This accommodative convergence means ESO. When the patient is trying to read or something like that, this accommodative convergence comes into play. Okay, and followed by AC by A ratio, right? AC means accommodative convergence, by A means accommodative ratio. Okay, so next one is partially accommodative and third one is non-accommodative. Now I'll come into concomitant esotropia. First one is, I told you that it is accommodative, partially accommodative and non-accommodative. So coming to accommodative esotropia, it can be because of refraction, it can be because of non-refractive error. Sometimes this is also partially accommodative type. Okay. So what happens in this accommodative? I told you when the patient tries to accommodate, when accommodation comes into exist at play, when you're trying to read or you're trying to see a near object, there will be accommodation. Okay, so this accommodation, okay, because of excessive convergence during accommodation, there will be accommodative esotropia. The accommodation convergence should be minimal, but if it is more, then it is called as accommodative esotropia. So how the patient comes with, there will be ESO deviation which increases with accommodation. When the patient tries to see the near object, accommodation will come into existence and this esotropia will increase more. Okay. So there, in this accommodative esotropia, there are types: refractive, normo-accommodative esotropia. Just 1 second. So I told here it is a refractive type. So this refractive type is this one. It is a refractive type of esotropia. It is mainly because of hypermetropia. In hypermetropia, always remember the patient will have near vision difficulty. The distant vision will be normal, but the patient will have near vision difficulty. Why? Because they have less accommodative effort. That's the reason in this hypermetropia, there will be some esotropia. Okay, the patient will able to see her clearly at the distant. Okay, they accommodate ESO deviation for distant fixation. Here, the AC by A ratio will be normal. Okay, there will be AC by A ratio which is normal. There will not be any convergence excess, is purely because of hypermetropia. Okay, so if you give a cycloplegic refraction, that is called as, you will dilate the patient prior. Okay, because what gives the accommodation? What gives the accommodation? Ciliary muscle, right? So this will relax the ciliary body. Okay, we will reduce the accommodation, we will make the accommodation 0, we will completely dilate the patient, then we will give refractive correction. Okay, with the dilated pupils you have to do the refraction, and that particular glasses you are supposed to prescribe to the patient. Okay, so for this treatment, full is important. Okay, so usually this is mild to moderate hyperopia in these patients. Okay, so that is about refractive normo accommodative, because only of, because purely of refractive error there will be ESO deviation. Now this type is hyperaccommodation. Second type is hyperaccommodation. Okay, the patient will have more accommodation than normal. Okay, in this esotropia for distance is also present, and the patient will have convergence excess and esotropia for near. Both the patient will have esotropia, but in refractive the patient will have esotropia only for near. We can see esotropia when the patient is seeing near object only in refractive type. In this accommodative type, the patient will have esotropia both for near and distance. And the patient will have high convergence effort, and because of that, the patient will have high AC by A ratio. Okay. Now coming to non-refractive accommodative esotropia, there will be no hypertropia or hypermetropia, no accommodation, but the patient will simply have high AC by A ratio. Okay, there will be hyper accommodative type. The patient will have more excess of accommodation because of that procedure, the patient will have esotropia. Okay, now coming to hypoaccommodative esotropia. Accommodation is very weak. Okay, normal AC by A ratio, but the patient will have convergence. Okay, so usually these patients are presbyopes, means after 40 years of age the patient will have near vision glasses. These patients will be presbyopes. Okay, so management for this, always give complete cycloplegic refraction, correct the glasses, advise bifocals to the patient. Okay, so full correction, bifocals. If any residual esotropia is present, then you can see that the patient is having non-accommodative element or partially accommodative element. Then we have to go for a surgery called as Fadden surgery. I'll explain you what is Fadden surgery. Okay, now coming to the most important thing which they'll ask you for question is essential infantile esotropia. Okay, in this the patient will have early onset esotropia, usually 2 to 6 months of life, which will extend. Sometimes the patient will have also it in 9 months, because this is very important to treat as early as possible, as the patient is having high risk of amblyopia, and the patient will have large angle of deviation. Okay, the patient will have very large angle of deviation. So what happens? The patient will not have any refractive error or neurological defects. Usually this patient will not have any problems like this. This is only simply congenital. Previously they used to call this as congenital. Recently they changed the name to essential infantile esotropia. You can see here the patient is having esodiviation, right? See all these pictures, the patient is having esodiviation. Associated with this esodiviation, the patient will also have nystagmus. Nystagmus means there will be movements of the eyeball, involuntary movements of the eyeball. The patient will not move. The eyeballs itself will move. These are called as involuntary movements of the eyeball. So what is the etiology for infantile esotropia? It is unknown, sometimes multifactorial, sometimes in monozygotic pigs. Most of the time it is idiopathic. Okay, most of the times it is idiopathic. So coming to management, depends upon the type of amblyopia. Always full cycloplegic 1%. Always correct the hyperopia and or try to occlude the, if any hypermetropia is present, then you have to correct it and up the occlusion therapy. I told you last time what is occlusion therapy, why we are supposed to give occlusion therapy. Conventional full time you should give. It can be patching done for 3 days and only 1 day leave, 4 days patch, 1 day leave, 5 days patch or 1 day leave for 3, 4 and 5-year-old children respectively. So surgery for large angles esotropia, as early as possible before 4 months of age, you have to correct the muzzle position. The small angles with proper hyperopic correction, you can still wait for 6 more months and then you have to do surgery depending upon the conditions. So acquired non-accommodative esotropia. So this is another type of esotropia where you can see non-accommodative type of esotropia. So in this accommodative non-type of esotropia, what happens? There are types in this. First one is essential acquired or late onset esotropia, acute concomitant esotropia, cyclic esotropia, microtropia, and nystagmus blockade syndromes. These are types of acquired non-accommodative esotropias. The first one is late onset non-accommodative esotropia, onset after infancy. There are no neurological defects, no accommodative factors. It is acquired essential non-accommodative type. In this, there are three types. One is basic, the second one is convergence excess type, and the rare one is divergence insufficiency type. The basic type, both distance and near, or the patient will have defective vision for both the distance and near. In convergence excess type, deviation is large for near because the patient is having more convergence. The patient will have deviation for near. In divergence insufficiency type is another type. Because of there is no action of more divergence, there will be convergence excess. Okay. Next one is microtropia. Very small angle, less than 5 degrees. Very small angle microtropia will be there. Usually the patient's eyeball will be in primary gaze. Okay, unless you break the fusion, you will not be able to see that ESO. Usually they have amblyopia of one eye with variable levels of binocularity. Okay, it can be primary, which is congenital, and secondary because of surgery. Any squint surgery have done and some residual deviation is left, and you can say that it is microtropia. Diagnosis. Sorry. This is not required. So if any amblyopia is there in the microtropia, treat that amblyopia with occlusion therapy. In younger children, usually the prognosis is very good. Next one is acute concomitant esotropia, sudden presentation, patient complaints of diplopia. There are two types which manifest after fusion has been interrupted by a patch occlusion, or those which have no such interruptions to fusion but have pure fusional control. Okay, because of some stress or some physical stress or emotional stress, the patient will have mild esotropia. Okay, but usually that much degree of esotropia will not be there. Even some of us will have when there are exams or something like that, the patient will have that particular who is more stressed, they'll have mild esotropia. This is called as acute concomitant esotropia. Usually most of the people will not have any problem, very few people will have diplopia. So the first type usually resolves within few days, and the second type surgery is required. Next one is cyclic esotropia. Regular cycles of presentation, cyclic. It will present after 2 months or every 3 months like that, or sometimes in days or sometimes in hours like that. Okay, so usually 24 to 48 hours of squint, alternating with some duration of no squint. Okay, so squint days, what happens? Larger angle of esotropia, very large angle esotropia will be there. There will be some anomalies, and the squint is consistent. So in no squint phase, binocular single vision is good fusional amplitudes are present and no latent squint. Even though you cover or uncover if you break the fusion also, the patient will not have any esotropia. It can last for few months to few years until they get the complete squint. Okay, in the prior phases of squint, the patient will have this type of problems. Okay. Next, nystagmus blockade syndrome. I think this is not required. Next one is sensory esotropia. Usually visual loss is present in one eye, which develops after squint over a period of time. It can be both exotropia or esotropia. XG means exotropia, ET means esotropia, depending upon convergence tone or what the convergence, depending upon the convergence ability. Okay, exotropia in first year and after 8 to 9 years of age. Esotropia after first year up to 8 to 9 years of age. Refractive error and accommodative status should be is needed for the treatment purpose and planning surgeries. So how do you manage a case of esotropia? First one is optical correction, which is very important. I told you diffraction, give bifocals, or sometimes you can use, if the hyperopia is very high, then you have to use prisms. Why you do optical correction or why you prescribe spectacles? Because fusion is very important and binocular vision is also very important. So maintains relationship between accommodation and convergence, which are the main part of esotropia. Next one is proper cycloplegia before correction is very important, and proper prescription with full cycloplegic refraction is very important, and always give bifocals in case of high AC by A ratio. You can see here bifocals, executive half segment bifocals. This is a type of glasses which you give with patients with esotropia. They will have bifocal. This is for distance and this part is for near. So this is prism glasses. You can see these vertical multiple lines. They act as prism bars. This is called as Fresnel's prisms. Okay, this you can use in glasses which is given for high hyperops. Next, medical treatment, myotics, cycloplegics, and chemodenervation with Botox. So how these myotics act and how these cycloplegics act? So myotics at the site is ciliary muscle, it facilitates accommodation, okay, and it reduces the accommodative convergence. That is the reason why we use myotics. Cycloplegics, because we have to give full correction for hyperopes, and it suppresses convergence mechanism and it will relax the ciliary body. So Botox, botulinum toxin, it is a injection which we give. It is a botulinum. Botox means it is botulinum toxin. Okay, it was first done by trial by Scott and McNair. It is done in infantile esotropes. Okay, if you give to infantile esotropes prior to, say, before 6 months of age, you can have good functional binocularity, because if you give only before 6 months of age, you get good results. Okay, initially you can have overcorrection, but later it will become normal. Next one is surgical management. Pre-op evaluation is very important. Assessment of vision and amblyopia therapy is very important, and measurement of deviation is also important prior to surgery. So there are various surgeries: weakening, strengthening. What you are weakening is the muscle which is involved, and strengthening of the muscle. And what is the aim? To symmetrizing a non-symmetric surgery. So what is the principle? To split amount of surgery across two recti muscles, that is medial rectus and lateral rectus. You adjust the position of the eyeball and you adjust the size of the medial and lateral recti. So what is weakening procedure? Weakening procedure is called as recession. Recession is weakening position. This section is strengthening position. How do you remember? In weakening there is no T, letter T is not there, and in recession also there is no letter T. But in strengthening positions, I'll show you. So in strengthening positions there is T, and in resection also there is T. So weakening positions, you can say recession. So what are the various types of recessions? Conventional, hang back, adjustable, vertical transposition of horizontal recti, slanting recession, and retroequatorial myopexy. These are all the weakening procedures. Okay, so what we will do, muscle is disinserted and reinserted to a point closer to its origin. We will de-insert, means we near the incision of the muscle, the muscle will have origin and insertion. So near the insertion, we will cut the muscle and move it back towards the origin of the muscle, and will suture the muscle towards the origin of the muscle, closer to the origin of the muscle. So this induces laxity, and the muscle and the eyeball will move towards the center. Okay. There is another type of recession called as hangback recession. Okay, these are all not required for you. Adjustable recession, you can just tell the points. So I told you Fadden surgery. Fadden surgery means it is posterior fixation suture. The muscle is sutured posteriorly to incision farther than its limit of arc of contact. Okay, so this is all not required for you. So strengthening procedures, I told you resection, both in strengthening and resection T are present. Advancement is another procedure of strengthening procedures. Transposition of adjacent muscles is also a part of strengthening procedures. So what in resection, what we are going to do? Shorten the muscle length, making it more taut. We will cut the length of the muscle. For example, if the muscle is about 10 mm, we'll make it into 7 mm. We'll cut the muscle and we'll make it into 7 mm. This is called as resection. We are cutting the muscle. In recession, we are not cutting the muscle. We are repositioning the muscle position. But in resection, we are cutting the muscle. Okay. So this is all about esotropia. If you have any doubt, you can just ask.